Today I'd like to introduce Heidi Tubbs. She was born and raised in the Twin Falls area, Filer exactly. She owns and operates Tubbs Berry Farm in Twin Falls with the help of her husband and children. This small family farm has grown from a small U-pick berry patch to include a community-supported agriculture. I'm going to give you just an idea of what that is. Is what they do is you purchase a interest in the community farm out there, and then they grow the various crops through the summer, and as those crops mature, you come out there and get a basket full each week. And if they have a bumper crop, you get a lot, and if the rodents get something, well, you may get less or you may not get any, but it's kind of an interesting concept. They also have a pumpkin patch and straw maze, an apiary, miscellaneous farm animals, and a small farm store that sells beekeeping supplies, drip irrigation supplies, plastic mulch, soap making supplies, honey, and other farm products. Heidi enjoys teaching, soap making, beekeeping, and other workshops. She volunteers in the schools, and on the rare occasion, she gets to escape into a book that is other than Dr. Seuss. They have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, ages 12 down through 2. So please help me introduce Heidi Tubbs, who's going to talk to us today about honeybees.
Thank you. Who knew when we started this attempt to let our children learn how to work that it was going to be so much work for their mom and dad? We actually got started into beekeeping because we were having some pollination problems in our raspberries, or at least that was the excuse my husband gave us to get his first colony of bees. If any of you grow raspberries, if you've ever seen white spots on them or areas that don't fill out, every little section on a raspberry has to be individually bee pollinated, and if it's not pollinated, it doesn't fill out. So when you have a raspberry farm and you have lots of fruit that doesn't fill out, that's a problem. So we got our first bees. We got 2 hives initially and had a terrible experience. And my husband finished that year and said, "That was awesome, let's do 300 next year." So I kind of had to draw the line. The joke at our place is that we have 25-ish hives. We're actually somewhere around 50 colonies that we have at the moment. So my husband still says there are 25-ish out there. Because that was the line I drew. I told him he could have 25 and that was all. So beekeeping has actually grown for us. It has gotten out of hand. We do teach beekeeping classes and we sell equipment and we do get people started keeping bees. And we always, in fact Autumn knows this probably, we told her not to get started because it will get out of hand way too fast. Beekeeping is a lot of fun, and you would actually be surprised who has bees in their backyard. You probably wouldn't realize that. That your neighbors may even have bees and you may not realize it. Most of you probably know bees because you've been stung. How many of you have been stung by a bee? Or was it a wasp? Or do you know? Most people actually have been stung by wasps that haven't been stung by a bee. Wasps tend to attack and are more likely to sting you. Bees die when they sting you, and so they really don't want to sting you, but if you pinch them or you attack their hive, they will sting you because they're going to die anyway. So if you step on a bee or pinch it, then it is more likely to sting you. Bees and wasps are actually very different. One of the big differences, wasps are shiny, bees are actually fuzzy. And their venom isn't related. You can be deathly allergic to one and not react at all to the other one. So bees and wasps are actually very, very different. So we're actually going to talk about honeybees today. Honeybees are actually the only insect that produce something that man wants. So bees are unique in that. Just a little bit basic bee bio. Are there any other beekeepers besides Autumn out here? Just so in case you what? No, so if I'm making it up, you don't know. All right, we're good. All right, so all your bees start out as an egg, and a bee's egg looks a little bit like a really small grain of rice. They actually hatch and turn into the larvae. It looks like little white worms, little gross grubs in a colony. And when bears are attacking hives, they're not after the honey. They're actually after the larvae or the grubs inside a colony of bees. So bees actually start out as a little larva, and they actually go through a metamorphosis process similar to a butterfly. I thought it was fascinating. You might not care, but I thought I'd tell you anyway. So they actually go through a metamorphosis. So that's what's going on in the little white boxes that you see sitting around in colonies. And if I get a chance, I'll even pull frames out and kind of show you what it looks like inside a colony in case you, if you care. Anyway, so all bees go through that process. Inside the colony, there's actually 3 kinds of honeybees. There's a queen, you've probably heard of, the worker bees, and the drones. The queen bee, she can live up to 8 years. Most of them live several years. Her sole job is to lay eggs, and she can lay in the summer up to about 2,000 eggs a day. So she's a busy lady. Thankfully, she has 60,000 nannies to help her, so she can lay 2,000 eggs a day. And that is really all she does. She actually cannot feed herself, care for herself, or do really anything for herself. The workers have to take care of her. She only ever leaves the hives really once. She goes out on her mating flight, comes back to the hive, and then she will, unless the colony swarms, will probably never leave the hive. So she will stay there. She emits a pheromone or a scent that tells the workers that everything is okay in the hive. And if something happens to her or the workers don't think she's doing a good enough job, they actually will kick her out and raise a new queen. So she doesn't really rule the roost. So the workers then, they are the ones that do all of the work. They can sting. They actually take care of the queen. They actually come from the same egg. They come from a fertilized egg, same egg that a queen does. The only difference between a queen and a worker is their diet. Worker larvae are fed a small amount of royal jelly. A queen larva gets an all-you-can-eat diet of royal jelly, and that really is the only difference between a queen and a worker. Amazing what your diet can do for you, isn't it? All right, so our workers are actually all female. So if your beekeeping information comes from the Bee Movie, it's wrong. There is no such thing as a pollen jock. They are all female. And so then you're saying, well, what are the boys? The boys are the drones, and the drones are awesome. They make great pets. And maybe you've seen them. They kind of have the big googly eyes like they're wearing flight goggles, so you'd think they were the pollen jocks. They have big googly eyes. They're kind of big and kind of square on the bottom, and they don't have stingers. So they make great pets. You can tie a thread on it and kind of follow it along. Just kidding. Anyway, we'll give them to small children when they come over. So it's really, really fun to play with the workers, or with the drones. So the drones are the male bees. Drones actually come from unfertilized eggs, which, if you want useless dinner facts to throw out in slow dinner conversation, here's one for you. What creature has a grandfather but doesn't have a father? A drone bee. He is a clone of his mother. He comes from an unfertilized egg. So, useless dinner topics for you. All right. Anyway, so that's a drone. That's your males. Your males actually don't do any work. They go from hive to hive. They just hang out waiting for queens to fly. The workers take care of them. They feed them. They groom them. They let them go wherever they want. And in the winter, they kick them out and they die. So, the life of a drone. You can see we have all kinds of jokes about this. Your worker bee, she actually will work herself to death in about a month in the summer. So she actually only lives a few weeks in the summer. She, the winter bees that have to live through the winter, they actually are a little bit different physiologically because they don't work so hard, and they will make it through the winter. A worker will produce about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey during her lifetime. So it takes a lot of bees to produce that honey. Some of the things you may or may not know: bees produce honey, obviously. They gather pollen. We do collect the pollen, but the real reason that they gather pollen is actually to feed the larva. Pollen is the protein source for the larva. They don't just do it to help us with the flowers. They actually have a use for the pollen. They also produce beeswax. Beeswax is something that the bees actually do make. There's a gland that produces the beeswax. They also produce royal jelly. There's another gland that the nurse bees have that produce royal jelly. The other thing that bees gather is called propolis. And it is tree resin. Think of it as the duct tape, Lysol, super glue of the bee world, and that's what they use it for. It's been harvested for centuries. They call it Russian penicillin, and it has been used as medicine for centuries. So that's some of the things that go on inside a hive that you don't get to see every day. Unless, of course, you're a beekeeper and you don't stay out of your hive, then you do get to see that every day. All right. You've probably heard a lot about colony collapse and bees dying and save the bees. And in my mind, colony collapse isn't a lot of ways a term for my bees died and I have no idea why. There are a lot of things affecting bees and a lot of things that we don't really understand. Those of you who are in science fields know that there's a lot of research money for I don't know and it's a problem, not a lot of research for something happened and I don't know what it is, but I think it's okay. So the bigger the hype, the more money there is for research. And right now there's a lot of money for bee research because we do need the honeybees, but there's a lot of things affecting them. And so the search for one thing causing colony collapse may not be the right way to go. Some of the things that are affecting them, just so that you're aware, there are mites. That's a fairly recent introduction. Think if you were carrying a parasite on you that was about the size of your fist, that's what the mite is on a bee. It is an insect. They began treating the mites with an insecticide. If you're treating an insect on an insect with an insecticide, can you see a problem? Okay, point taken. So the mites and the treatments obviously are a problem. The mites also carry some diseases that are very serious to bees, some viruses and things that cause deformed wings. Again, bees with deformed wings, do you see a problem? Okay, so that's one of the main things. We also have a lot of new chemicals that are coming out that we really don't know how they work and how they affect bees. So insecticides, those kinds of things are a problem. Herbicides, a lot of those things could be a problem. What can we do to help? Read the label before you spray something. Most of the things that you spray are bee friendly. It's just that, especially homeowners, we don't often read those. So most of your labels, commercially, they're very cautious about that. And a lot of things say you cannot spray when things are blooming. You cannot spray during daylight hours when bees are going to be out. But there are a lot of things that are actually written to be very bee friendly. So just read the label before you spray something and see if it's going to affect the bees before it comes. So that's something that you can do to help. You can plant things to help pollinators in your area. If you keep bees, your bees will go about a mile from your hive to forage. So if your neighbors have bees 1 or 2 miles away, the things that you plant actually will help their bees. Let's see how much time I have left. Sorry. A couple other things that are just interesting about beekeeping and bees right now. I don't know if you knew that there is a black market for honey, and there is a lot of honey laundering going on. There is the things that you don't think about. Our honey industry here in the United States has been affected. We have huge tariffs on Chinese imports coming into our country because they sell honey here on our market for less than we can produce it here. And so they put tariffs on the honey to keep it from coming in. So what China has done then is circumvented that. They start selling it through other countries, relabeling it as that country's honey and trying to get it across the border that way. Not really a big deal, except what they're finding is that quite often it's not even honey that's being labeled as honey that they're trying to get across the border. It's often corn syrup or things that have been tainted with it. They're also, they recently had 6 tanker loads of honey that were turned away at our border because it was Chinese honey that was laced with toxic levels of pharmaceuticals and heavy metals. They don't know how many of those are already in our food supply, but they did catch 6 tanker loads of it and turned it away at the border. You may think that that's not a big deal and it doesn't affect us, but even us, as little and as small as we are, we have been contacted by foreign companies asking us to import their honey, mix it with our own, and sell it as local honey. So even someone as small as us, they reach out to. So there is a whole black market for honey. The money for beekeeping is actually not in the honey. Honey is a bonus crop for most commercial beekeepers. The big money is in pollination. Right now in almonds, they will make much more taking a colony to California and pollinating almonds than they will off the honey. Which again, that's one of the things that affects bees health-wise, is because then they're on a monoculture crop for a long time, and even if you are eating carrots for a long time, you're not going to be very healthy. So that diversity. And diversity in general has affected us here in our area. Our fields, we like them to be fairly clean. We like our gardens to be clean. We like our yards to be clean, and especially our farmers like their fields to be clean. And as that's happened, the weeds that used to be in the ditches aren't there anymore, and those used to provide great pollen and nectar sources for our bees between seasons. So that's just one more of the death by 1,000 cuts that could be affecting bees and could be helping facilitate that colony collapse disorder. So anyway, there's a lot of fun things affecting bees, but there are a lot of fun things going on with bees as well. We found bees in our family to be a lot of fun, a really great opportunity for us to sit and visit with our children over a hive. Each of our children, except for my 2-year-old, does have their own hive. And that's a fun thing for them to share with their friends. We did have to make a rule that they had to put bee jackets on friends before they could go out with a spoon, because the friends always get stung. So anyway, beekeeping is a lot of fun. If you have any questions about bees or beekeeping, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah.
So since you own the beehive, like the bees know you, like they don't really sting you or anything?
Right. Actually, if you know a beekeeper who says they've never been stung, they're lying. Bees don't generally want to sting you, but they will sting you. Yes. For the most part, they're pretty calm, and we can work a colony. And so colonies work as kind of an organism in and of themselves, and different colonies actually have different temperaments, just like different people do. So there are some colonies that I don't need to wear a bee jacket. There are other colonies that I'm not going to crack the lid unless I put a bee jacket on. Yeah.
So Autumn actually handled this. My cousin Brandon has a bunch of bees, and he had 2 queens all of a sudden. How do you handle that? I mean, the other queen was on his neighbor's yard at the base of a tree, and he was panicking that his neighbors were going to freak out.
A swarm.
Yeah.
And if you're a beekeeper, swarms are really exciting. If you've seen a swarm is just if all's going well in a colony or all's going really bad. But usually, if all's going well, the queen will leave with a bunch of the workers, and that's just how they increase the colony. The old colony stays and makes a new queen, and the new one leaves, and they go find a new place to live. And if you see a colony like that, they actually are generally not very aggressive. So first, don't panic. What they will do is they will find a spot, and they will be there from anywhere from a few minutes to a few days while they send scout bees looking for a new location. And then the scout bees will come back, and they will kind of converse, decide where they're going to go, and then all of a sudden they'll take off. If you see that and you don't want it there are actually beekeepers in the valley who would be happy to come and get those. So there is actually a Magic Valley Beekeeping Association. You can call me, and I will hook you up with one. I'm trying to get a website set up so that you can just go right to the website and have a list of numbers to call. So if you see that, contact either us at Tubbs Berry Farm, or there is a Facebook for Magic Valley Beekeepers. Do a search for Magic Valley Beekeepers, and we'll put you in touch with somebody who would be happy to come and get that for you. So yeah.
Are we ever going to have a killer bee problem here, or is it too cold?
That so far the furthest that they've moved north is southern Utah. We are too cold. They do not store honey well, and so our winters are too hard on them. So we hope it stays that way. Yeah.
When you go to a colony or a little house where they're kept, what is the stuff that you spray on them that looks like smoke to like chill them out?
Smoke. This is a smoker.
It is.
Again, if your education comes from the bee movie. Okay, this is a smoker, and all it does is actually produce smoke. Now, the reason that this works is because bees evolved in areas in trees, in forests, and occasionally in a forest, what happens? It burns, yes. And so when they smell smoke, they do just what you would do. They run to the pantry and they start eating as fast as you can. Right? That's what you would do, right? You don't want to leave on an empty stomach. So bees, when they smell smoke, they know that if their tree burns, they're going to have to leave. And in order to build wax, to build a new home, they have to have a stomach full of nectar. So they actually will start eating when they smell a little bit of smoke. So they start eating, and that they're busy. And so they're less likely to sting us. The other thing is that they communicate by pheromones. If you want to know, the alarm pheromone smells like bananas. But they communicate by pheromones. And if you've been by a campfire, what can you smell? Smoke. So when they smell smoke, it disrupts that pheromone, and so they can't get that alarm that a bear is attacking our hive. So that's why smoke works. Yeah.
Yeah. On timing, Can you start a colony now, or is there certain times of year?
You know, if you find a swarm now, you might be able to still order bees in now. Ours, April is our bee month to really get started. Our hands-on, our beekeeping classes start in March, and then our hands-on are in April. Our bees that people order bees to get usually come in the last Saturday in April, and so we'll start taking orders in February for bees to get started. This time of year, if you catch a swarm, you can still get started. Swarm season usually through about the middle of June. If you get them by then, you can still get them up big enough to survive the winter. So much beyond that, the colony just can't build up enough to make it through the winter. So yeah. And if any of you are interested, the last Saturday of April every year is our big bee day. Even if you don't get bees, it's hundreds of people and absolutely insane. And you can come and learn about bees. There's free workshops and hiving demonstrations and hive stuff, and you're welcome to come out. Yeah.
What would a typical investment be to have a colony in the
For
backyard?
we tell people for your first colony, figure between about $350 and $550, depending on where you get your bees, how much, if you put the pieces together yourself, or if you get a whole bee suit, or just a veil, those kinds of things. But right in that area for your first hive to get your equipment and your bees and everything. Yeah.
So I'm friends with John Cron. You might know him.
You what?
John Cron.
Okay.
He actually travels with his bees. So what causes that? Is it gets too cold here, obviously, so he takes them down to California?
The money's in pollination.
Okay.
Sometimes we try and sugarcoat it like we're taking them down there for vacation, but they're not really going down there for vacation. Bees actually were evolved in cold weather. That's why they store honey. Our bees winter here. They can actually overwinter in Alaska. It's just that summer doesn't come fast enough and they run out of food because they don't hibernate. They actually just cluster in a ball, and the bees on the outside, as they get cold, move into the center, and the bees on the center, as they get cold, move to the outside. So they just have honey as their energy source. They just sit and vibrate their wings and generate heat, and that's how they make it through the winter. Huh? Yeah. So bees don't heat the hive. They just heat that cluster. So we're not really taking them to California to warm them up. They take them down there to make money pollinating. Yep.
That makes sense.
Yep. Yeah.
Where's the berry farm?
Where's our berry farm? Yeah. We are about a mile south and a mile west of the old hospital. We're on 3800 north between Grandview and 2700 east. So,
Do you still do berries?
we do. Our strawberry season is just starting. We kind of get a waiting list going. So if you're interested in berries this year, call me or email me right away. That's for just strawberries. Our raspberries will start in the fall. So we have summer strawberries and then fall raspberries. Yeah.
Do people have hives in town?
Yes, they do. In fact, you would be, Autumn, do people have hives in town? Yes, you would be surprised who has hives in town. In fact, Harmon Park, right across the street from the Ball Diamonds, he had at one time 6 hives in his backyard. So beyond about a foot in front of your hive, you wouldn't even know that they were there.
When you harvest the honey, then obviously you have to leave enough behind to get bees through the winter. So how is that decision made, or how do you go about that process?
That's a good question. We winter our bees in 2 deep boxes. So we leave our bees about 80 to 100 pounds of honey. And then if they produce more than that, that's what we harvest. So that's how we leave them, their own stores. So good year, we get a harvest. Bad year, we don't get anything. We get to go out with a spoon occasionally, and that's about it. Yeah.
I remember hearing about using local honey to help fight local allergies. What's that about?
If it works, it's phenomenal. If it doesn't, it was good honey. That really is. Sometimes it really is phenomenal. My son, he had very bad allergy-induced asthma as an infant, and when he got old enough to eat honey, his asthma actually went away. So as long as he eats a spoonful of honey at least every other day, we don't have any asthma problems. There's others that come and get honey from us that it's the same way, that they feel it helps their allergies, and and it keeps it at its bay. I'm not a doctor, I can't make medical claims, I'm not selling it as medicine, but there are many people who, I do get calls in the spring that sound like this. Bob my way over with a spoon. So some people, they really do feel it helps. So, yeah. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you.